On August 16, 1977, news broke that shocked the entire world. Elvis Presley had died at just 42 years old. Within hours, fans gathered outside his home, Graceland, struggling to accept what had happened. Radio stations interrupted broadcasts, television networks rushed to confirm the details. For millions of people, it felt impossible. Elvis wasn't just a singer, he was a global phenomenon. But almost immediately, confusion surrounded his death. Reports were vague, information was limited, and many questions remained unanswered. What exactly had happened inside Graceland that morning? Why did the story feel incomplete from the very beginning? To understand Elvis's final hours, we need to go back, not just days, but years. By the mid-1970s, Elvis Presley was no longer the same performer who had revolutionized music in the 1950s. His career had evolved, but so had the pressure surrounding him. He was still performing regularly, especially in Las Vegas and on tour across the United States. However, these performances came with a heavy cost. The schedule was exhausting, shows were frequent, travel was constant, and expectations never decreased. Fans demanded perfection every time he stepped on stage. Behind the scenes, Elvis was physically and emotionally drained. The energy that once defined him was beginning to fade. Yet stopping was never really an option. Elvis's health had been declining for years. He suffered from multiple medical issues, including high blood pressure and digestive problems. Doctors were frequently involved in his care, prescribing medications to manage his symptoms. Over time, this led to a complex dependency on prescription drugs. This distinction is crucial to understanding what truly happened. Sleep became one of Elvis's biggest struggles. He often stayed awake through the night and slept during the day. Insomnia affected both his physical health and mental clarity. Without proper rest, his body was under constant stress. To manage this, doctors prescribed sedatives. To wake up and perform, stimulants were used. This cycle repeated itself over and over. It created a pattern that was difficult to escape. His body was constantly being pushed in opposite directions. Over time, the effects began to show more clearly. In 1977, Elvis's appearance had noticeably changed. He had gained weight and appeared more fatigued during performances. Fans began to notice inconsistencies in his shows. Some nights he was energetic, other nights he struggled to complete performances. Despite this, ticket sales remained strong. The demand to see Elvis live had not disappeared. Colonel Tom Parker, his longtime manager, continued scheduling performances. Financial pressures and contractual obligations played a role in keeping Elvis on stage. Elvis's inner circle was aware of his condition, but the situation was complicated. Many people depended on him, both financially and professionally. There were concerns, but also a reluctance to intervene too strongly. Elvis was not just a client or employer, he was the center of an entire system. Some close to him later admitted that they felt something was wrong, but didn't know how to stop it. Others believed that things would eventually improve. Unfortunately, that moment never came. In the summer of 1977, Elvis was preparing for another series of concerts. A new tour was scheduled to begin soon. Despite his condition, he was still expected to perform. Plans were already in motion, and there was little room for delay. Those around him noticed he was increasingly tired. His movements were slower, and his energy was inconsistent.
Still, he remained committed to his responsibilities. Even in his weakened state, he continued moving forward. On the night of August 15, 1977, Elvis was at Graceland. He spent time with his fiancée, Ginger Alden. The evening followed a relatively normal pattern. There were conversations, moments of quiet, and attempts to relax. However, once again, sleep became an issue. Elvis struggled to rest, just as he had many times before. Hours passed, and the night turned into early morning. Nothing seemed unusual, at least not yet. In the early hours of August 16th, Elvis was still awake. Insomnia had taken hold once again. He moved through the house, trying to find a way to relax. The large mansion was quiet, almost still. At some point, he decided to go to the bathroom. It was a simple, everyday action. There were no signs that anything critical was about to happen. But this moment would soon become one of the most discussed events in music history. Later that morning, Elvis Presley was found unresponsive by Ginger Alden. Emergency services were called immediately. Attempts were made to revive him. He was transported to Baptist Memorial Hospital. Doctors worked to stabilize him, but the situation was already critical. At 3:30 p.m., Elvis Presley was officially pronounced dead. The initial reports about his death were limited. The official cause was described in general terms. However, as more details emerged, it became clear that multiple factors were involved. Medical examinations revealed the presence of various prescription medications in his system. This raised new questions about how these substances had been managed. The story was becoming more complex. In the months that followed, investigations focused on the role of prescription drugs. It was determined that Elvis had access to multiple medications prescribed by different doctors. This practice, while not uncommon at the time, created dangerous overlaps. The issue was not a single substance, but the combination of many. This pattern contributed significantly to his physical decline. Despite these findings, debates about Elvis's death continue even today. Some believe the official explanations do not tell the full story. Others argue that the facts are clear and well documented. The mystery surrounding his final hours has become part of his legacy. It reflects the complexity of his life and the era he lived in. Graceland quickly became a place of mourning. Thousands of fans gathered to pay their respects. For many, Elvis was more than an entertainer. He was a personal connection, a voice that had been part of their lives. The loss felt deeply personal. Even those who had never met him felt the impact. The king was gone, but his influence remained. Elvis Presley's story is not just about fame or music. It is about the human cost of living under constant pressure. His final hours were not defined by a single moment, but by years of accumulated strain. Behind the image of success was a man dealing with real challenges. His life serves as both inspiration and caution, because in the end, Elvis Presley was not just a legend, he was human. And maybe that's why his story still feels so powerful today, not just because of the music, but because, deep down, people recognize something real in it. A man who had everything the world could offer and still struggled in ways no one could fully see. Now I want to ask you something. Do you think Elvis Presley could have been saved if things had been different? Or was his fate already sealed long before that final day? Let me know in the comments. I read everything. And if you enjoy real stories like this, stories that go beyond fame and show what really happens behind the scenes, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because there are many more stories like this coming, and some of them are even more shocking than this one.